project introduces some additional GUI controls from the toolbox in C#, including a tab control, which will have tabs at the top of a control. We can go basically from page to page. We'll have checked list boxes, tree views. We'll draw some graphics programmatically, use link labels that will launch a website or another application in Windows. And then we'll do a little bit of work with multiple document interface, in which we'll have multiple graphics inside a window, and we can make each graphic the active graphic. We can tile them vertically and horizontally, and we can also change the size of the images being displayed as far as how they fit in the window. So that's our project. Let me jump over and show you the project running, and we'll walk through the different things that it will do, and then I'll let you try it on your own and also provide you my code in a code review. Here's my project running. We have a tab control with some tabs at the top, and allows us to go between the various controls that we're demonstrating here. So each page of the tab control has items on it, just like if we're working with a group box or a panel. So here we have the checked list box. I have a checked list box control. I have 3 items already in my list box: ketchup, mustard, and mayonnaise. I can click the add item and add a new item to the checkbox. In this case, we're going to add onions. We'll add in some jalapenos, and I'll add in pickles. And you notice that these are alphabetized automatically in the checked box. That's an option we can choose for that checked list box. I can select items and choose Get Selections, and it brings up a dialog box that shows what those items are. So jalapenos, mayonnaise, mustard, and pickles were the checked items. If I want to remove an item, I can select the item and click Remove Item, and I get a dialog box asking, are you sure you want to remove that item? I'm going to click Yes, and it goes away. The tree view has makes and models of a car in this case. We can look at the models inside each make. There are buttons down here to collapse the tree and expand the tree. I can add a make. I'll add Toyota. And then I can select Toyota and add a model. We'll add a couple models, and again I can expand my tree, and you'll see those models have been added in. If I select the Chevrolet make and add a model, it adds the model to the Chevrolet area. I can choose an item and say Get Selection, and it tells me I selected the El Camino. That's the tree view. The graphics simply has a button to draw some vectored graphics on the page of that tab, including some rectangles and a couple of ellipses or circles, and then an arc. We can clear that and draw it again. Link labels. There's a link here to go to the South Mountain Community College webpage. It's going to launch my browser. And so there is the South Mountain Community College webpage in my browser. I'm going to come back here and click Canvas. That's going to launch our Canvas webpage. I'm going to minimize that. I can also launch an application from Windows. Here I'm going to launch the character map utility. And then finally, I can also launch Windows Explorer as another application. So there then is Windows Explorer. And then finally, we have an MDI, or multiple document interface. This is going to launch another form. This is my parent form. And inside the parent form, I can then have multiple documents. So I'm going to open up a JPEG. And I'll open up another JPEG. And I'll open a third one. Notice that each of these documents has a title bar and the minimize, maximize, and close buttons. So I can maximize this. I can take it back to the predefined size. I can make one active by clicking on it, just as you would in Microsoft Word or Excel. I can change the size mode of the active document to be normal. Make this a little bit bigger. Auto size, center image, fit the image to the window size, or stretch it. I'll go back to fit image. In the Windows menu, I can choose to cascade these, tile them horizontally, or tile them vertically. I can also make a document the active document by clicking it here, and you'll see the title bar is not grayed out where the other two are. So again, I can choose to close the document. And maybe I want to go back and cascade just those two, or tile those two horizontally. If I close the master or the parent of the MDI, everything else also closes. So that's our Advanced GUI project. I suggest you pause the video here, try this on your own, and if you get stuck, come back and I'll show you my code in the remainder of the video. Here's my form 1, my main form, and on this is a tab control. I just left it named tab control 1. It has a collection of tab pages, and so I have 5 pages, and this is where we set the text of each page. I didn't bother rename the pages. There's tab page 1, tab page 2, and so forth. But you can see here the text is set for each one of these to what we see appear on the tab. On the first page is my checked list box, and it contains a checked list box control. I named it CHKLST condiments, and I added a couple items in the collection here for ketchup, mayonnaise, and mustard to start with. We have a button named BTN add checked item, BTN removed checked item, and BTN get checked items. Let's just take a look at the code for these buttons. So I did add in the Microsoft Visual Basic and the system diagnostics as directives in Visual Studio 2019. If you're using the newer VS 2022, you don't need to do that. They are actually already embedded in for you. So just be aware, I did create a graphics called drawing area. And so we also need the system.drawing. I think that's there by default. And then here's our checklist box. Here's the BTN add checked item. So we're going to simply create a string of new condiment. We're going to use the input box from Visual Basic to get that item, and we're just going to simply add it to the checklist. Just so you can see all the code here. I put onions as the default. To remove an item, I have an integer of XYZ, a string of XYZ text. That's going to be my index and the text from that. I'm going to try to get a selected index. If there's not a selected index, then we're going to say, please first select a condiment to remove. We'll get the string of the selected item. And I'm going to use a message box there. Are you sure you want to remove that item? Please confirm for my title. Yes, no, cancel. So if they say yes, we'll remove that item at that index. To get the items, we're going to use a string builder. And we're going to start with your made-to-order hamburger. We're using a variable called int j to keep track of how many items there are. And then if j equals 0, we're going to say you want your hamburger plain. So otherwise, we're going to go through a loop, and we're simply going to append to our prompt a new line character and a tab character, and then the item that was selected. And then we'll have a message box that shows what their custom burger is. Notice we used a return here in this if fork, so at that point, this code ends up stopping. We don't get the second message box. Let's go back to our design, and we'll look at the TreeView. So here I have a TreeView control, and again, In the nodes property for collection, I set up Chevrolet and Ford with some default models. We can add in a root, so Chevrolet and Ford are roots, and the child are the Blazer, Camaro, Bronco, and so forth. We have a button named BTN Add Make, BTN Add Model, BTN Add Selection, BTN Expand Tree, BTN Collapse Tree. This probably should have said Get Selection rather than Add Selection, but that's okay. So let's take a look at this code. Here's the code for our tree view. We have the BTN Add Make event handler. When they click it, we're simply going to use a input box from Visual Basic to have them enter a new make and add that into our tree as a root. Then to add a model, we're going to first make sure they selected a make or a model. If there's nothing selected, we're going to tell them first select a make in the tree view. And then we'll check to see, did they select a make or model? If they chose a model, we want to make sure we get the parent of that model, so we're getting a make. Otherwise, we'll take whatever the selected node is, that's going to be the make. And again, we're going to use a Visual Basic interaction .input box, and we're going to add a model into a string called new model, and we'll add that into the node for the tree node of our XYZ. And we'll do an end update. To get the selection that they've made, we're going to use a try catch to make sure they've made a selection. So selected index equals a -1. We're going to ask them first make a selection and return. Otherwise, we will get the model that's selected and show them a message box. You selected the, and whatever the model was. And we'll make that all uppercase just to make it stand out. The expand tree simply calls the expand all method, and the collapse calls the collapse method. Let's take a look at creating the graphics. In the graphic tab, I simply have two buttons. One's called BTN Draw, and the other one's called BTN Clear. Let's take a look at that code. So for the graphics, I'm going to create a drawing area of the aTabControl.selected tab. That's going to be the tab for the graphics. Then we're simply going to create some brushes. We have a solid brush. I'm going to use a blue color, and I'm going to draw a filled rectangle with these coordinates. 120 from the left, 20 from the top. It's going to be 250 pixels wide and 80 pixels high. Then we'll draw a small rectangle on top of that. It's going to be a little white square, so color white. We're going to put that at 320 and 6 for our y coordinates. And it's going to be 20 pixels wide, 20 pixels high. Then I've got my yellow circle. So again, a solid brush, color yellow. We're going to use that yellow brush. Here's the center, 150, 75, and we want the radius to be 100 and 100 in both X and Y directions. It's going to give us a perfect circle. Then I'm going to draw a black line around that circle. So here I'm going to draw an ellipse again, but it's not a fill ellipse, it's just an ellipse. We use a black pen, same coordinates. That'll give us our outline border. And then for the pie, that little slice, again we're going to have the X and Y coordinates of our center, the width and height as if we're drawing an ellipse, but here we're going to do a start angle of 75 degrees. That's going to be down towards the bottom, a little bit to the right, and we want to go 30 degrees. That's going to split it on that 90 degree mark, 15 degrees on each side. And we're going to fill that with a green brush using lawn green, and then our coordinates to create that. To clear, all we're going to do is take the selected tab.create graphics area again as far as our drawing area, and we're simply going to paint that all in white. Let's take a look at the link labels. So here I have 4 labels I've created. Each one is a link label. First one's named Link SMCC, Link Canvas or LNK Canvas, LNK Character, LNK Windows. These are very straightforward as far as coding. So I'm going to use process.start, and I'm simply going to call a website that's going to launch our web browser, our default web browser, and show that website. Now again, the key here is to make sure that in 2019 or earlier, you've included the using system.diagnostics. Here's our Canvas one, basically the same thing, just another different website. So here we're going to use learn.maricopa.edu. For our link character, we want to bring up the character dialog, and I need to specify where that's located on my system. So mine is located in the program data, Microsoft Windows, start menu, programs, accessories, and then start tools, and it's the character map.lnk. And that's all a literal string, so I put a @ symbol at the beginning of that string. That way it uses the backslashes as backslashes and not escape characters. Same thing for the LNK Windows _ link clicked event. I'm simply going to start C:\\, Windows. That will bring up the Windows Explorer. For the MDI, I simply have a button, and that button is named BTN Launch MDI. And all it's going to do in the code is create a parent form of FRMDI, which I've added in over here, and it's going to show that parent form. Let's take a look at that parent form. So I added a form. Here's my form. Has a menu bar with File, Windows, and Size Mode. The file has menu items of Open. I said JPG, but I programmed it so we could open other graphics. Close active file and exit. Windows, Cascade, tile horizontally, tile vertically. I also did a bar going across because the open windows will all appear below that. That way it separates them. And then for size mode, I did normal, auto size, center, fit, and stretch image. Notice I used the key mnemonics here of NACFS. Over here, CHV. Over on the file, I used the O and the C and the X. Let's take a look at this code in our MDI form. So that button in our main form 1 is going to launch this form, and then we can choose to open documents. So here's our code to open a document. We're going to use the open file dialog that's been incorporated into the program. We'll look at that in a second. We're going to simply launch that. We're going to get what the user has chosen, and we're going to create then a new child. Just going to call it FRM child. So I have another form called FRM child. Let me look at that real quickly. Here's our design on that one. It's just a small form. It's got a picture box that I need to pick image. I stretched it to the size of my form, and then I anchored it on all 4 sides. So as we make that window larger, the picture box itself will also expand. That's the extent of this form. Let's go back to the code for our MDI form. So that's going to create a new child of that. We're going to set the MDI parent of that child to this form. This is our MDI form, and we'll show that child. To close a file, we're going to make sure they've selected a file. So I'm going to verify that there's an active child. And if there's not, then we're not going to do anything. But otherwise, we're going to prompt them to make sure they actually want to close that document. In case they accidentally click that document, it's a good idea. If they do say yes, then we'll simply issue the .close for that child document. And for exit, we're going to apply the close method to our form, our MDI form, that will close our form, our parent form, and all the children inside of it. So on the Windows menu, if we have multiple forms open, multiple windows open, we've got Cascade, tile horizontally, and tile vertically. Let's take a look at that code. So these are pretty straightforward. We're simply going to call the layout MDI and pass it the MDI layout.cascade. Same thing for the tile horizontal, and same thing for the tile vertical. So those are those 3. For the size mode, normal, auto size, center, fit, and stretch, we'll create a pointer to the active MDI child. And if it's not null, I mean there's a window that's selected, then we're going to set the size mode of the pick image to auto size or normal. Probably should reverse those two, since normal is the top of our menu items. So that's auto size and normal. Same thing here for center image. So we're setting the picture box size mode to center image. Here's the one for zoom and the one for stretch image. And that's the code review for our Advanced GUI project. If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the C# Xamarin Programming Cohort playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos that I create, you can click my picture up in the top right and subscribe to the channel.